Hey guys, welcome back to Competitor's Edge YouTube channel. Today we are going to be installing pistons in the 408. All right, so we're going to start where we left off yesterday. We filed piston rings, and what I did not show on camera is deburring them. Every time you do your piston rings, every time you do piston rings, you want to make sure that you deburr them after the fact on all sides, every edge. Got to make sure you deburr them. You don't want any burrs screwing up your cylinders. The nice finish that your machine shop put on there for you, or mess up your piston somehow. So you got to make sure you get that done. So I did that off camera. I got them done. These are clean, wiped down, ready to install in the pistons. But before we do that, just going to touch a little bit. I know it's probably going to come up. I did the piston rings yesterday after I had already started assembling the block. So crank is in there for the last time. The specs were good. It was torqued down. I was ready to assemble this engine. I actually had piston rings already filed for this thing, ready to go. But unfortunately, they were off by like 0.5 millimeter. They had sent me the wrong rings and I didn't catch it right away. So that's my bad. So that's why it's already partially assembled while I'm filing piston rings, because I had to order a new set and redo it. So that was very unfortunate, but it is what it is. We are ready to go now. Bores are wiped out. You see they're nice and shiny, ready to go. So what I will do, I still have the rod caps torqued down from when I was checking bearing clearances. So I will set them up in my vise. I will take the bolts off, take the caps off. I will put the rings on, get them in the orientation where they're supposed to be, use the piston ring compressor, and lube everything up, and we will slide some pistons in. So I will try to show you that process the best that I can. We'll see how it works. Okay, so when you're doing this, you don't want to use a regular vise. You're going to end up damaging your rods. You got to clamp down on them. You got to apply some torque to it. It's going to be a lot of side load on it. So you want to use a rod vise. It's aluminum. It locks it down nice. It puts nice even clamping force on it. And you can break them loose like that without damaging anything. I will cheat a little bit. Of course, I got everything in the way. And the nice thing about this is when your cap is locked down on there, you can just grab it. Here, I'll flip it around so you can see. You can kind of grab it on the end and use it to help separate your cap from your rod. Grab that out of there. Okay, so that's separated and ready. I'll go ahead and put some piston rings on it. Okay, let's see how that camera angle works for you. So I'm going to start with installing the expander ring, and then to the thinner oil rings. And what I'll do is I will touch on ring orientation once I have all the rings on. In the meantime, I will get these on while struggling And I won't even time lapse it, so then you can see my struggles and my fat fingers and skinny rings. And I will rambletron on and probably bore you. But I mean, what else are you gonna do? Probably just gonna be on the couch, being bored, not looking forward to going to work tomorrow. I'm just kidding, you probably love your job. That's the way it should be, right? Okay. Should be good there. Now, so I got piston number 1, and I know which way I got these rings laid out. So if you're not sure which ring is which, you're gonna see, layman's terms, the shiny one is the top ring, and the dark ring is your second ring. So we're gonna install the second ring first. And they should tell you which way is up. Got a top. My ring set here, both show have a top side. Majority of the rings will have a top side. It'll either say it'll either say top or have a dot, or it'll show a bevel, and you have to look at in the instructions which way that's supposed to go. So for installing these guys, I don't roll them on because I don't want to wreck anything if at all possible. So what I'll do is I'll use a ring expander, and I will actually bring the ring gap into the groove first, while the ring on the other side is still up in the air, and that just reduces the risk of scratching the piston along the sides when you release it. So that way you're not pulling over the open ends, you're actually already got your open ends lined up, and you're simply pushing the closed end over and then releasing. So we'll do the top ring, same thing. Get it lined up in the groove on the top and slide your backside over. And when you're putting pressure with your ring expander, you only want to do just enough so that your ring can slip over. Do too much, might break a ring, and nobody wants to do that. Okay, so let's talk about the piston ring orientation on your piston. So I actually put them on there 180 degrees from where they should be on a number 1 cylinder for a Ford. So I flipped them already. On a Ford, number 1, your thrust side is the bottom. You got your top ring end gap on your thrust side. Your second ring end gap is on the anti-thrust side. Your ring expander you're going to have on your thrust side as well. And then your oil thin rings, you're going to have a gap on this side and a gap on this side. Okay, so thrust side. Looking at the front of the engine, your crankshaft is rotating clockwise. So if you can picture your rod journal swinging around, right? Now you got your piston in here, coming down on compression stroke, you know, suck, squeeze, bang, blow, pushing the piston down, your rod angle is up, okay? So with that happening, with the rod angle up, your piston's getting forced into this wall as it's going down. So that means this bottom side is your thrust side. Now it's the opposite on the other bank. Your rod angle is down, and now your piston's tilted up this way, so to speak. So suck, squeeze, bang, blow, all the magic happens. Pushing the piston down, the rod down, the crank journal down, and your skirt is getting shoved onto this side. So this is the thrust side on this bank, and the bottom is the thrust side on the other side. So hopefully that kind of helps. Okay, next step. We're gonna oil up the piston. It's clean. We got the rings on it. We got the bearing in it. I am using Joe Gibbs driven braking oil. I got it in the can here, so we'll use that. I did put a little bit in here, Eddie, but we're going to make sure that the wrist pin has oil and moves freely. Everything checks out good there. We will use some on the skirts. And of course, it's going to get a little messy. And some on the rings. And before we slide it in, we'll double check the piston ring orientation to make sure that's good. So, I also have, I got a little extra oil in my hand, so I'm going to use that just to re-oil this guy. We got a piston ring compressor. These, if you're not familiar with them, are awesome. If you got that other one that's really expandable, you know, that your grandpa used to have, and it's like goes to 5 inches and you can crank on for days, wants to slip and slide, yeah, those are a nightmare. These are amazing. I got a bunch of different sizes. You can kind of get them universal, so you got a bit of a size range. That might be the right way for you. It might be upside down. I'm not even sure. Cool. But yeah, get yourself one of these if you don't have them. Well worth the money. Okay, so we're all oiled up. I'm going to double check the orientation of the rings. So remember from earlier, top ring down, second ring up, your oil rings on either corners, and your expanders in the center. So we are good there. That all checks out. So we will slide this into the compressor. Being careful not to completely mark up the bearing or anything. Don't want to be touching that. And we will squeeze it in there. I might have this one set too tight right now. I'm not sure. It's working pretty good. There we go. So you can push her through and get your skirts kind of sticking out the bottom. And then your skirts sticking at the bottom will sit in the bore, and you'll be able to level everything out from there. Alright, so I will set you back up by the engine, and we will go from there. Okay, next couple things we're going to do. I got some Cleveite bearing guard that we are going to put on the journal before we put it on. These journals are all clean. Once again, sorry for the noise. Just turn that heater down a little bit so make sure you guys can hear my jibber jabber. So we will go ahead and put some of this bearing guard all over the journal here nicely. Alright, good there. Clean up my hand a little bit. Okay, now we're going to slide the piston in. Everything's looking good. You want to make sure that your rod has a chamfer side. I'm on the other side of the camera now, so I'm not sure if you can see it. But you got a chamfer side and a side that's flat. These chamfer sides have to go to the outside of the journals. There's a radius there that chamfer needs to clear. The flat sides are in the center together where the rods touch, okay? But everybody knows that, right? Tell you something new. I probably don't have anything new for you. Alright. We'll slide that in. Make sure that it's straight so that way your rod's going to clear your crank counterweights there. Get my wood handle here, and what I'm going to do is just on the inside there, I'm going to put my hand on the rod itself and just try to help guide it, so that way it doesn't hit the counterweight anywhere. We're going to make sure that that compressor is against the block, and we'll give her a couple good taps till we get the rings into the block all the way. There we go. Just like that, it's in. Easy, right? Now, we'll tap it in the rest of the way. Being careful. Not to hit the crank with the rod. Because you don't want to mess that up, right? Paid all that money for machine work. You don't want to score that up. Do it all over again. Come on. So, rod bolts. These are ARPs. These are the 8740s. These get torqued down to 63 foot-pounds. I still am using the ARP lube. So I'm going to use some of that. I got a bigger can with the brush, you know, but I'm going to put a light little layer on there. If by any chance my machine shop guy is watching this, he's going to be shaking his head because he doesn't like this stuff. I'm sorry, that's all I got. Maybe send me a link, you know, where you get your stuff from. I'll start using that. All right. So when putting your bearing in, or your rod cap, it's also got the same chamfer. You want to make sure that you got them lined up. Also, when I took it apart, I marked each side on the rod and the cap, so that way it goes back on the same side. All matches up, it's all good. So, get these things threaded in. Oh, it's boring. Hey, I should have used the D-Weld. Now, I'm not trying to put a ton of torque on there right now. Basically just hand tight, just to kind of seat the cap evenly on each side. With that, we're going to install all the rest of the pistons and rods first. Once they're all in, then we are going to torque them down. Because if you are going to torque it down now, there is nothing it can rest against. Okay, so you're going to put some side load on here again. If you wait till your other rod is in there, now they can work on each other. They brace each other. You can torque them all down. Everything's happy. All right, so with that, I am probably going to do a time lapse now because this is long and winded and you already know this stuff, right? So we will get to it. Okay. So we have all the pistons installed. Therefore, all the rods are installed. It's awesome. So we are going to now torque them down. We are doing 63 foot-pounds. And I can get that. All right. So we're going to do it in a couple of strokes, a couple of different increments, so you're not just hammering it in one shot. There we go. So now I'm guessing you can see what I was talking about earlier, how now when you're torquing it, you got both your rods side by side. So as you're applying that torque, it's not twisting. And as you're torquing it and you're turning the engine over, you're feeling for any kind of binding. If there is, then you know there's probably an issue with that set. Okay, that is done. Complete, finished. Short block, done. Now, yes, I have a Mastercraft torque wrench. Yes, I have gotten it calibrated. It's okay. Works well, it's done me very good. Feels real nice. I will measure the side-to-side clearance again, just to make sure. But before I took this engine apart to do the rebuild, I did check it and we were good. And it all feels very nice. Okay, as you can see, it's done. We're finished up the short block. Things to touch on, as I slid the pistons in, you saw that I was able to do it with my knuckles, or my hands. I was able to pop them in. That spring compressor is, sorry, the piston ring compressor, top notch. It works so good. My knuckles are a little sore now, so I recommend doing it with a hammer, but at least now I can say I've done it with my hand. As you saw, after I slid them in, I spun the engine over a few times after the cap and everything was on, just to check for any kind of scarring in the cylinder walls. If you do have anything showing up, you might not have deburred your piston rings properly. But if you deburred them properly, you shouldn't have any issues. You shouldn't have any scarring or scoring. Yeah, so just look for those scratches. Other than that, as you're torquing it down, you're rotating it, you're checking for any kind of binding. Really, that's it. It went together nice. Everything that was off camera, you know, beforehand, checking bearing clearances and stuff, that's all the tedious part. You know, now everything was done, all the checks were done, everything, all the clearances were correct and checked, ahead of time, so it made this look fast and easy. At least it felt fast and easy. But on that, things to come, we're gonna do the camshaft install, the timing set. We're gonna degree that camshaft in. We will probably wait a little bit for that because I'm hoping to get a different camshaft in for this engine instead of using this one. This is a bit of an older grind anyway. It's a Comcam's Magnum or something like that. It's an older grind anyway, so it'd be nice to get an upgraded grind, a little more lift and duration out of it. Especially seeing as we have a new set of AFR heads coming. ETA on those AFR heads are still unknown. I was supposed to get them November, December. Still don't have them. We're January. I tried calling today. Sounds like they're doing inventory. So I'll try again tomorrow. We'll try to get an ETA on those heads. So yeah, we got some more content to come. That's what's up next. I'm not sure how long it'll be before the next one comes out, just because of waiting on parts. But we'll see what else comes up. We might have some tuning videos or something coming down the pipe too, depending if customer lets me do that. Not sure how much I want to show anyways of what I do there, but we'll see. I'll touch on that a little bit here and there, I think, as we go. But yeah, thanks a lot for now. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. If you like it, like it. If you don't. That's fine with me. Just doing this to try something new, but definitely appreciate you checking it out. Thanks a lot. Take care.